The sun dappled through the leaves of Eden, setting the garden ablaze with color and life. Birds sang their ancient songs, and the wind carried the sweet scent of blossoms. It was a symphony of beauty, a masterpiece of creation. At the heart of this paradise stood a tree, not of wood and bark, but of shimmering light. This was the tree of knowledge, the keeper of wisdom both terrible and profound. Its branches held secrets that humanity was not meant to bear, truths that could shatter the innocence of man and open his eyes to the darkness and complexity of existence. Near this tree lived a man and a woman, Adam and Eve, created from the dust of the earth and blessed with the gift of life. They were caretakers of Eden, tasked with its preservation and its appreciation. Their days were filled with the simple joys of tending to the garden's myriad wonders. Each day an echo of the one before, a tranquil melody played on repeat. But within this idyllic existence there lurked a dissonance, a disharmony that threatened to shatter the perfect peace. It was a whisper in the wind, a rustle in the leaves. The serpent, ancient and wise beyond measure, stirred. It was drawn to the garden by the very nature of its existence, a beacon of purity amidst the chaos of the universe. And the serpent, ever curious, ever hungry for new experiences, began to weave its way towards the source of this captivating innocence. And then it saw them, Adam and Eve, basking in the glow of their existence. Oblivious to the shadows gathering at the edge of their vision, the serpent had lived for countless ages, witnessing the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars. It had seen good, and it had seen evil, love and hate, hope and despair. It had tasted the bitter fruit of knowledge and the sweet nectar of ignorance. And it knew that these two humans were as pure as the morning dew, as innocent as the first bloom of spring. And so the serpent decided to play a game of whispers and half-truths, of subtle suggestions and veiled temptations. Eve, ever curious, ever eager to understand the world around her, felt the pull of the unknown, the inexplicable draw towards the whispering tree. She turned to Adam, seeking his gaze, finding his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. She sensed his preoccupation, his attention drawn elsewhere, and in that moment, a seed of doubt was planted in her heart. Could this be the forbidden fruit, the one thing that had been kept from her knowledge? Was this the tree that held the answers to the questions that burned within her soul? She looked back at the serpent, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly wisdom, and she knew she could not resist. As Eve took her first step towards the forbidden tree, the serpent spoke, its voice like the rustling of leaves. Did God really say, "You may not eat from any tree in the garden"? Eve paused, her hand hovering over the glistening fruit. She remembered the words of her Creator, the boundaries set for her existence, but also the nagging doubts that had crept into her heart. Could she have misheard? Could there be more to this garden than what she had been told? The serpent sensed her confusion, her internal struggle, and pressed further. Why can't you eat? Why are you forbidden from tasting the fruit of this tree? Eve hesitated, torn between the teachings of her Creator and the insistent curiosity that gnawed at her soul. The serpent's words echoed in her mind, planting seeds of doubt, watering them with promises of enlightenment. In that moment, Eve realized that she was not alone in her journey. Adam, her partner, her other half, was also struggling with the same questions, wrestling with the same doubts. He had been silent, she realized, ever since the serpent had entered their lives, his gaze distant, his thoughts preoccupied. And in that realization, Eve felt a surge of empathy, a deep understanding of the torment that must be raging within him. She turned to Adam, her eyes searching his, hoping to find solace in his familiar gaze, only to find a reflection of her own turmoil. In Adam's eyes, she saw the forbidden tree, the source of their doubts and forbidden desires, and she knew that they could not escape its presence. They were bound to it, tethered to its mysteries by the invisible threads of curiosity and the insatiable human need to understand. Eve reached out to Adam, her touch a silent plea for unity, for strength in the face of the unknown. And in his eyes, she saw understanding, a recognition of the shared struggle that had brought them together in that moment of truth. Side by side, they stood at the precipice of their existence, poised on the edge of a decision that would shape their lives and the fate of humanity itself. Eve felt a surge of determination. She would not face this alone. She had Adam by her side, and together they were stronger, more resilient. more capable of withstanding the test that lay before them. As Eve and Adam stood together, united in their resolve, the serpent watched, its ancient eyes gleaming with a mixture of amusement and anticipation. It had played its part well, weaving its web of doubt and discontent until it had ensnared the hearts and minds of these innocent humans. But now it would wait, patient and unmoving, as the drama of humanity unfolded before its timeless eyes. For the serpent knew that this was not merely a game. It was a pivotal moment in the story of existence, a turning point that would reverberate through the ages. Eve reached out, her fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the rough bark of the tree. The serpent slithered closer, its scales glistening in the dappled sunlight, and whispered, "Take the fruit and eat. Do not fear the consequences, for I am here." With those words, the serpent vanished, leaving Eve and Adam in the hushed silence of the garden, their fate hanging in the balance. Eve looked down at the fruit in her hand, its skin smooth and inviting, its color a vibrant contrast against the dark branches. The scent of the fruit was intoxicating, filling her senses with a heady mix of sweetness and intrigue. But beneath that enticing aroma, she could sense something else, something dangerous, something that threatened to shatter the fragile peace of their existence. Despite the fear that gnawed at her heart, Eve knew she could not turn back. She had taken the first step towards the unknown, and there was no going back. She turned to Adam, his face etched with worry and doubt. In his eyes she saw the conflict raging, the battle between obedience and temptation. And in that moment, Eve understood that their decision would bind them together, either in the unity of faith or in the torment of betrayal. The choice, she knew, was up to them. The garden, once a sanctuary of peace, had become a battleground. The serpent's whispers echoed through the trees, a constant reminder of the forbidden knowledge that lay just within reach. The sight of the fruit, once so alluring, now seemed like a taunt, a challenge to their unwavering devotion. The wind, once a playful companion, now moaned through the leaves, carrying with it the weight of impending consequences. The birds that once sang joyful melodies had fallen silent, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Even the sunlight seemed to dim, casting long, ominous shadows that danced menacingly on the ground. As Eve and Adam stood on the brink of their decision, the garden itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching, and perhaps mourning the impending loss of innocence. Eve closed her eyes, trying to shut out the cacophony of temptation that surrounded her. She reached out to Adam, her touch a silent plea for strength, for guidance in the face of this overwhelming turmoil. And in his embrace, she found a semblance of comfort, a grounding force in the midst of the maelstrom. But even in Adam's arms, Eve could not escape the relentless whispers of the serpent. The voices echoed in her mind, taunting, tempting, urging her to take the forbidden fruit and unlock the secrets that had been hidden from them. And as the serpent's whispers grew louder, Eve felt her resolve falter. The garden, once a symbol of peace and harmony, had become a crucible of temptation, testing the limits of their obedience and the strength of their bond. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a final burst of beauty before the darkness fell. The garden, once vibrant and alive, now seemed to droop, as if sharing in the heaviness of their hearts. And in the gathering gloom, the silhouette of the tree loomed larger, its branches clawing at the fading light. As night fell, the garden transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. The stars, once pinpricks of light, now twinkled with an eerie glow, casting long, distorted shadows on the ground. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves into a frenzy, and the branches of the tree swayed ominously, as if beckoning them closer to the forbidden fruit. The serpent, sensing the growing despair, slithered closer, its eyes gleaming with triumph in the darkness. It had played its part to perfection, driving a wedge between the humans and their creator, and now it awaited its reward. The taste of forbidden knowledge and the promise of chaos. Eve, her face pale and drawn in the moonlight, clung to Adam, seeking solace in his presence. The decision they had made echoed in the silence, a heavy weight that threatened to crush them. They were no longer the innocent caretakers of Eden. They were rebels, outcasts, forever separated from the purity of their existence. And as the night wore on, the full weight of their actions settled upon them, a crushing realization of the path they had chosen. The sky above seemed to weep, the clouds heavy with sorrow and regret. The wind carried the scent of rain, a cleansing deluge that could wash away the sins of the world, but not their own. In the depths of their despair, Eve and Adam realized that they were not just outcasts from the garden, they were outcasts from themselves. Their eyes, once bright with innocence, now reflected the shadows of their choices. Their hands, once pure and untainted, now trembled with the weight of their burden. They were broken, shattered fragments of what they once were, and there was no going back. The serpent, coiled at the foot of the tree, watched with a cold amusement. Its game was won, its victory complete. The humans had fallen, and with them, the innocence of Eden. And as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Serpent slithered away, leaving behind a garden in ruins and two souls on the brink of an uncertain future.